So one little thing before I begin talking about Nikola Mirotic and the Pelicans. While I like doing these straightforward commentaries over 2K gameplay because I can kind of talk about whatever and go in any direction I want, I do think for the sake of presentation, it would make sense to have some sort of like footage to start the video. So I think that's what I'm going to do moving forward, where the first maybe 5 to 6 minutes of these type of videos will be like either more scripted footage, I guess, and then the last half could be what you see now, because I think that can give me the best of both worlds in terms of like, you know, having better presentation, but then also allowing me to kind of free roam a little bit. Anyway, but that'll be moving forward after this one. So Nikola Mirotic, now a member of the New Orleans Pelicans. This was rumored for a minute. There were a lot of teams that I would have liked to have seen Mirotic on, the Jazz being probably the biggest one. But, you know, the Pelicans, I think there's a lot to dissect with him on this team as well. The immediate thing you think of is just the spacing that he can provide Anthony Davis at center. As for if DeMarcus Cousins is going to be on this team moving forward, he probably is, because the Pelicans are in the tough situation where if they let DeMarcus Cousins go, they will have nowhere near enough cap space to get someone who can even provide close to what he provides for them. But of course, there is the Achilles injury, so that's a risk. They're going to have to just really pay attention to his rehab process, and they'll have to make a decision. I have to assume that he is back on the team, and it'll probably be something like a 2+1, 2 years team option sort of deal. Anyway, let's get back to Mirotic. So they've been running Anthony Davis at center, and Davis was the starting center for the majority of last season, where the Pelicans were a very good defensive team and their offense struggled. I would like to believe that if you stuck Mirotic at power forward, that would allow your offense to have a little bit more pop. Now, the Pelicans have been running some guys at power forward who can shoot some threes, right? Like Dante Cunningham can hit a wide open three. They've perhaps even been running Darius Miller at power forward, who can, he's a very good three-point shooter. But I think Mirotic is a level above both of those guys because, number one, he will take a contested three-point shot, so he doesn't have to be open all the time. And the other thing is, because of how quick of a release he has and how tall he is, he has a lot of Ryan Anderson in him, and it makes him a really devastating three-point shooter. I mean, he's shooting 43% right now while taking like 6.5 threes a game. That's pretty impressive stuff. He also will do pull-up threes. He'll get a rebound, bring it up floor himself. He'll catch it in transition and do a pull-up three. It adds another layer of offense to this Pelicans team that they desperately need. And do I think he could allow them to go to another level on defense? No, not really. But, I mean, hey, if you play him predominantly with Anthony Davis at center, then you could still be a good defensive team anyway, because when AD plays the 5, the defense just as a whole gets a lot better. Now, the one fear is that might push Dante Cunningham away from playing with Anthony Davis. And when Cunningham and AD play together, the Pelicans are just like an elite defensive team. But at the same time, if we assume DeMarcus Cousins is going to be back, that could allow you to play Cunningham with Boogie more often, which I think makes a lot of sense because, Boogie is the worst defender between him and Anthony Davis. So if you play Boogie with Cunningham, that can hopefully help out DeMarcus a little bit when it comes to pick and roll defense and all that. And then you could run Anthony Davis with Mirotic, and then that way AD's defense could help out Mirotic, who isn't the best defender in the world. So instead of having 2 good defenders and then Boogie with someone who's not as good, you could have one solid defender out there at all times to be able to perhaps maintain your defense. Now, of course, you'd probably have your odd minutes here and there with Boogie and Mirotic, which could lead to a lot of three-point shooting. I mean, if you had a lineup out there that was Drew Holiday, Etuan Moore, Darius Miller, Nikola Mirotic, and DeMarcus Cousins, I mean, that's a very spread floor that's going to be very difficult to defend for a lot of teams, But another element that Mirotic provides as well is the ability to just hit a tough shot at the end of the shot clock, because I think that is one of the things that can allow you to be a really good offensive team. A couple of those things that aren't always as noticeable, but really make a difference are offensive rebounds, and then just can you bail your team out at the end of a shot clock. Between Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, I think Drew Holiday can be put into this category at this point. And then Mirotic, I mean, 4 guys who, if there's like 6 seconds left in the shot clock and the initial motion just didn't work, and you could still get a bucket or at least get fouled, I mean, that's something if you ask me. So, assuming DeMarcus Cousins is still 80% of what he was, then, I mean, that's like number 1 offense in the league potential if you ask me. Now, I don't know if Alvin Gentry has the coaching chops to be the coach of the best offense in the NBA, but I would like to believe the talent is now there, assuming Boogie is still mainly Boogie. Because besides just these 4 guys who can create and make shots and all that, should be said Drew's three-pointer has been a little worse this year. But still, with those 4 guys, and then Etuan Moore, who is just a solid three-point shooter, and Ian Clark, who's okay enough, and Darius Miller, who's been very good from outside this year, Dante Cunningham, who can at least hit a couple of corner threes, I think that's quite a lot of offense. And then, like I mentioned earlier, hopefully you have enough small ball 4s and guys who are not bad defensively on the wing to make up for the fact that you would now have 2 bigs in Mirotic and Boogie who are not the best on defense. I think there's just enough. Between Anthony Davis, we can't forget Solomon Hill, and Dante Cunningham, hopefully it's enough. Now, if we get to where does this put them in terms of this season, like can they get into the postseason, and then how do they compare to some other teams that are in that area? Honestly, I think this move makes them better than the Clippers, definitely. I think it makes them better than Utah, and then after that, there really is too much separation. Like the Lakers are 8 games out, so I don't think they're in the discussion right now. And even Utah with 5 games out, you could say that's a little too much. So if the Pelicans can hold off the Clippers, and I think they can with this move, because once again, Anthony Davis at center is great on defense, and then you got some more offensive punch with Mirotic. So that means they're guaranteed to be in the postseason. Now, they could be the 8th seed, and they're going to lose in round 1 to the Warriors. Right now, they're going to lose in round 1 to the Rockets. Could they creep up to number 6? They're a half game out on the Blazers. And whether Kawhi Leonard is healthy or not, I don't think these Pelicans would beat the Spurs in round 1. But you could definitely make it more interesting if the Kawhi injury is not going to resolve itself. I mean, if you can get to like a game 6 in your home arena, I mean, I think that's really good for the team, especially one that didn't make the playoffs last year, Sell some tickets, sell some merch, all that good stuff. Well, here's one way to look at it. If we look at these teams' games coming up until the All-Star break, the Blazers play 6 games, the Pelicans play 7 games. 3 of the Blazers games could be kind of tough. It's one at the Celtics, at the Pistons, which might be a game to be a little concerned about now because Blake Griffin, I don't know. And then they also have the Warriors, the game before the All-Star break. And that's in Golden State, so that should be a tough one, right? And then for the Pelicans, they play the T-Wolves in Minnesota. They play the Indiana Pacers, which is always going to be a tough game because those guys are pretty good. They're playing in Philadelphia. They also have the Pistons in Detroit. So I think there's a possibility that one team goes like 3-3, like the Blazers, and then the Pelicans go like 4-3 or 3-4. So even then, I can't get like a real idea. Then we have like a 20-something game stretch. I'll go out on a limb. I think the Pelicans will catch the Blazers. I think Mirotic is going to add a lot to their offense because if you may remember, when DeMarcus Cousins went down, my thing was they're not going to catch the Blazers because their offense is going to fall too much off of a cliff. Well, now they rebuilt a little bit of the cliff, and that's not how the analogy actually goes, but whatever, I don't care. I think Mirotic will do enough. I look at this team like this. If they were going to start the season with this roster, this rotation, I think they would be like the 7th or 8th best defensive team in the league, and then they would be like the 13th or 14th best offensive one, as opposed to what they are now, which is a little bit more offense and a little bit less defense. And I think that's good enough to get you into the postseason. And I have to assume that with the amount of time that is left in the season, which is give or take 30 games, they can get over the Blazers. Now, of course, the trade deadline is the trade deadline. Portland could make a move. Hell, the Pelicans could make another move. They already traded one first-round pick, so I don't know if they would be willing to, but there are many variables with this. Now, we should be mentioning a little bit here. Could OKC fall off? I already said that Andre Robertson, to me, is a big deal for them, and defensively, it's been a little rough for them without Robertson so far. I think, given that the Pelicans are only a game behind OKC, I think there's reason to believe that one as well. Ultimately, I think the Thunder will maintain their 5th spot because they have Russell Westbrook, and when you have a game up and you have Russell Westbrook, I have to assume you're going to hold on, okay? Is that much of a, breakdown? No, not really, but whatever. Call it a gut feeling, if you will. Not everything has to be super analytical and nerdy, okay? I could be dead wrong, though. For all I know, they're going to fall off a cliff because their defense is just too bad without Robertson, so we'll have to see. You never really know. But my gut feeling is the Pelicans overtake the Trailblazers for the 6th seed with Mirotic, and yeah, I think that'll do it. Again, moving forward, I want the first half of these videos to be more scripted footage because I think it makes for a better video, but I still want the freedom to kind of just spitball because I think that allows me to really get deep into the stuff, to the meat of when a change like this happens in terms of lineups, rotations, and on-off numbers and all that stuff. Anyway, that's going to do it. Mirotic on the Pels, I think it'll help him out. Hopefully when Boogie comes back, if he comes back to this team, that he can still be himself, and I think these guys can be pretty damn good.